house. We live in a 1944 year-old house, so heating sort of goes out the windows and every place else actually in the house. So they just know. Our company knows. You either bring a sweater over if you're coming over in the winter, or you're going to freeze. But it is one of those things that we actually say yes, we can cut down on. Because heating cost is so expensive. It might not be comfortable for you. You might have small children that's not really you're able to do. Same with the cooling, You can certainly take the air conditioning if you have central AC and cut that down somewhat. Walk or ride a bike to work might not be possible. And really gets, in the middle of a rainstorm, riding a bike to work is not the optimum thing to do. So, some of these things are really unrealistic when they talk about budgeting. But some other things that are budget conscious, and I brought it up, and again, it was a mortgage customer. We have to go through the last 3 months of checking and savings account if someone is buying a new home to see that they have not got a large deposit in their account, which could have been a gift or that type of thing. In any event, when I was doing that, I was going through this married couple who I think one worked in Boston, the other one worked outside of Boston. And I was going through it just this past couple of months, and I was going through their checking statement, and I just happened to see how many times they went to Dunkin' Donuts, because it says it, and they used their debit card. Well, in this 1 month, this couple, who I'm sure had children also, I think they have 2. They went to Dunkin' Donuts, each of them, almost every single day. Sometimes a couple times a day. They spent, when I added it up, because I was doing it and I just something clicked in my brain. And I added it up, and they spent over $462 a month at Dunkin' Donuts. So, in thinking that, I thought to myself, you go to Dunkin' Donuts every work day also, Karen. And I thought, and I usually get a bagel twist and a latte with an extra shot. And as I do enjoy it, I figured to myself, from January 1st until last Friday, I would have spent $432 at Dunkin' Donuts myself. $432 to me is a lot of money that can be easily, it's one of those things that can be easily done without. Not to put Dunkin' Donuts out of business, because it's not going to happen. However, now I really enjoy hot tea, so I went to the supermarket. I have a wonderful tea that I love, that I drink on the weekends, and I thought, take literally 3 minutes out of your day, Karen, make a cup of hot tea, put it in your Teavana thermos, and bring it to work. The package of tea for 24 tea bags is $2.20 at Walmart. So that $2.20 is making an entire month, if not more, of tea for me. And if I really want the bagel twist, which I probably should do without, I can get, a 6-pack of bagels at the market. You can get whatever you want. I've been taking toast or whatever. I'm just not one of those first thing in the morning eat. So I can't just get up, eat something, and then go to work. So, I'll take a yogurt, I'll take whatever. It's probably much healthier for me, and it is literally, and I did that about 2 months ago or so. I think I started it, maybe end of February, when I realized that these other people spent on a monthly basis. And, it's amazing. I have that extra money in my purse. It's, at first I was thinking, well, it's $20 a week. What's $20 a week, But when you look at it and say it's over $400 for 75 days, that's just amazing to me. So that's just a little type of thing. But, I think that you pick it. And if you're single, or if you're like myself, you can certainly just, look at your budget when you are looking at it and say, What can I change? Not necessarily have to cut out all the time, but what can I change? Sometimes, and it really isn't going to change your lifestyle all that much. One of the most challenging aspects is budgeting is not the cutting of the expenses, but like I said, identifying them. So just identifying what could be possibly a switch. I came up with another one yesterday. We don't have Netflix anymore. However, my sister, when she was living with her family, was on a much tighter budget at that point. And she used to subscribe to Netflix. Netflix is a movie type of thing. Obviously, everyone's kind of familiar with them. It's $7.99 a month. We were going to rent a movie last night through pay-per-view, except for there was really nothing to see. The movie in pay-per-view was either $5.99 or $6.99 per movie. To me, you know, that's one of those things, if you have a family, if you have children, if, you know, subscribe to Netflix for $7.99 a month, get as many movies as you want, unlimited, rather than $5 or $6.99 per movie. Much, much cheaper, certainly something in your expense budget that certainly works. You know, so there's all kinds of stuff like that out there. Truly, I mean, never mind getting Netflix, we also have two of those. I have Apple TV in my bedroom, and which gets you anything that you want really from your computer. So, you know, if you have a computer, you can certainly stream anything that you want basically through your Apple TV, and I think that Apple TV was $99. You know, so you could certainly have something like that too and subscribe. Basically, I think the biggest thing for budgeting is once you get something like this monthly planner, you need to look at it a lot. You need to hold yourself to that budget. You know, it's okay if you fall off or if you decide that you need something, sure. You know, just like a diet, you don't have to say, oh, forget it, I'm gonna just throw this out the window now and I don't need to have it anymore. You know, it is challenging, but I think that if you write it down and hold yourself accountable, it certainly works much better. And I think that they say that in any kind of thing that you're trying to do, whether it's, you know, budgeting or anything else. So when you get it down in writing, keep your promise to yourself. You know, write a promise, say, okay, I'm gonna do this, this, and this. On this monthly budget spending, we're talking about your net income. Does everybody's familiar with net, so whether it comes when you get paid on a monthly basis or a weekly basis on it, your pay stub or your hourly says your gross at the top. And if I'm a mortgage person, I go off your gross income. However, when we're looking at budgeting, we're really working off your net income. It's because that's what's coming into your household every single solitary day. So you want to work on everything, your pay, you know, so if you're paid $500 a week, you want to work, but your taxes and insurance and everything comes out of that, you want to work on what you actually, your net income, and put that up there at the top and really work off of that. Speaking of that, your housing ratio, it's been in existence for many, many years. I remember when I was just getting into the mortgage business, my dad had said to me, oh, do they still use that like quarter of your income to qualify for a mortgage? And I said, yeah, actually they do. But that's a little bit different situation. They take 20, if you pretty much take your gross income now, and you take 28% of your gross income, that's really all you should be spending towards, on a monthly basis, towards your housing expense. It's a good rule of thumb. It works really well. So, you know, if you make $2,000 a month, say, of gross income, you should be using 25% of that. And that maximum should be going towards your rent. If it isn't, you should probably see if A, you can get something that's a little bit more affordable to you, you know, and in the form of if you're renting or housing. With housing, you sometimes can either expand your term possibly, refinance into a lower rate if you had a home, any of the above. So, you know, those types of things. But your housing is obviously going to be your largest expense. So I like to try to work from there and say, okay, if you take 25 to 28% of your gross monthly to go towards housing, that should be in good shape. And then take your net and work everything else off of that. Again, like I said, making it simple and logical changes. Once you understand where your money is going, it's usually much easier to see where your changes can be made. And when you do that and you're writing it down, I think that you find on this monthly housing expense planner, you know, there are things on monthly payments like your rent or your mortgage, and then child and alimony support, and child care, because those are really your three biggest expenses, if that's the case. However, you know, and then loans come into play. When Chris was talking about credit and things like that last week, everybody understand there's two types of credit. There's open credit, which is usually revolving, which is like your credit card payments, and any kind of revolving means that your credit could be, even if you're talking about you have an open dentist, you know, a dentist that continues on a credit card, or a lot of them put it on credit card now if it's not covered by insurance. That type of thing is revolving. Car loans, student loans, installment loans like personal, mortgage, those are all closed-end credit, meaning that at some point they're going to be over. It's a installment debt or a debt payment, a loan payment that has a term, and at the end of that term, you're done paying the debt and it's over. Revolving, just a little fact that I read years and years ago, $3,000 on a credit card at 12% interest, paying just the minimum payment, which what do they ask for? Maybe $12, $15, very, very low, will take you 30 years to pay it off. So that revolving debt, if you can keep it to a minimum, and at the highest interest rate, try and pay the largest interest rate off first, and pay the minimums on the other. It's a really good tool to do. A financial advisor had said that to me, you know, pay the one that's at the highest interest rate. If that Discover's at, you know, 14% or something, put extra towards that Discover, even if it's not the largest balance, and pay the minimum on the others, if you can, and get that one paid off first. On the same thing, and I know it's not really my topic, but I don't know if Chris had told you, to try and keep your credit scores higher, which obviously we know everything revolves around credit in today's world, to try to keep your credit scores higher, try to keep your revolving balances. There's typically, you know, a credit card will have a $10,000 maximum balance. Try to keep it below 50% of that. So it'll keep your credit scores in good shape if you do that. And obviously, if you can't pay extra towards your principal on your credit cards, at least pay the minimum by the day that they're due. That certainly helps your credit report tremendously. But that's a little bit off the beaten path, and I'll certainly take questions after if you have any too. Chris had said maybe someone might have had a couple of questions that she couldn't answer last week, and if you haven't found the answers already, I might have them. So again, like I said, once we get it down in writing, I think that you'll find it much easier to follow the budget once you put it in writing, promise to yourself that you're going to try to stick to it, it's going to help out a lot. Just the small sacrifices, like I said, the tea versus my extra shot latte, it really isn't hurting me very much, you know? Yeah, have I gone back to Dunkin' Donuts, you know, for a latte because I was having a bad morning? Sure, absolutely. But, you know, it doesn't mean that the next day I have to continue doing that. You know, it just means I fell off the budget wagon for the day, and the next day make my tea. You know, again, this says perhaps you'll decide to discontinue cable TV service. For me, I look at it like, well, you know, that's a pretty big step to take. My sister has 2 houses. One is here in Douglas, and the other one is at the Cape. And I thought she was absolutely crazy because she said, oh, I'm going to be spending, you know, a good amount of time at the Cape, and we're not getting cable TV. I'm like, oh gosh, how are you going to live without cable TV, you know? She said, oh, well, Joe, that's my brother-in-law, bought an antenna, and he's going to put it up. And, you know, supposedly now the new TVs with this antenna get channels. I'm like, I'm not a believer. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure it is. Well, it works, believe it or not. You know, it was like a $60 antenna that he bought at Lowe's. He has it in the attic. It doesn't even need to go on it's just this little thing. It doesn't even need to go in the on the top of the house like when I was a child, I remember. And, you know, I mean, they have like 12, 14 channels, you know. You know, Eileen said it's perfectly fine. If I want to go and watch the Red Sox game, then we'll maybe grab dinner and, you know, because we have the extra. Cable to me is just so crazy that it's $100 and something a month for cable TV. You know, we have basic at our house, you know, like I said, because we don't really do a whole heck of a lot of watching, you know, sports or this or that or anything else. Might be something that you look at your cable TV and say, do I really need all these premium channels per se? Or again, you know, possibly look at an Apple TV or one of the others. There's Fire, this, that, and everything else. And they just go streaming through. So if the kids watch a lot of videos on, you know, on the computer, they could certainly do it right through, you know, Apple, and it's a one-time charge. So, you know, maybe decrease the amount of premium channels that you're looking at, or at least call cable and say, can I go over what I'm paying for? Because $140 or $160, I see some people that are $200 for cable TV every single month. That's a lot of money, you know? So look at it and see. Small changes. You know, I'm going out to eat person. That's my thing I like, you know? But other people might enjoy, you know, other things. You might be, okay, I want to go as an extra, you know, I want to go golfing, or I want to do a movie night, or, you know, something like that. Just look and see where you can cut your expenses down. Because really those are big things. This happens to say cancel subscriptions to unread magazines that are piling up on your coffee table. To me, I think that's a great one. We have a stack, I don't even know how big. I don't even know who's ordered these magazines, but they come to the house every month, you know? And then on my last page, it says tips for successful budgeting. And I just like to go over them. You know, if you are a family or you're single, like I said, I have to take the single route and say, okay, what can I do to do this? And I think that's actually even a little bit harder because you've got to cut it on yourself. But talk with other members of your family. You know, consider everybody's needs, whether it's a smaller child or an elderly parent that you need to care for, something like that. See what they need and see what they want, and what they can do without and what they can't do without. And talk about it, because if you make your family, if you just do this budget, woman or man, sit down, fill out this monthly housing expense planner and say, okay, this is mine. Well, you know what? It is only yours. and you're the only one that really has to be accountable for it. But if you make the kids accountable for it, you know, if anybody has little ones, I don't know how many times I'm at the market or someplace, Walmart or whatever, with my nieces and nephews, because like I said, I'm from a big family, so usually constantly I don't have children, but I constantly have someone with me who's usually 10 or under. And you know, they're like, Auntie, can I get this? You know, Auntie, and they're going through and they just, you know, it's things that they absolutely, positively do not need. And I think that sometimes, obviously, because I am their auntie, you know, they even pull that as a card, a playing card, to know that maybe they're not going to get it from their parents, but they might get it from me. But again, I mean, I do it even with my friends and things like that. You know, I have one good friend who's has an only child, and they can well afford, you know, really anything I'm sure that they need, or that their child needs. But, you know, sometimes I look at her and I'll say, Eileen, she has like 10 of those at home. You know, she's asking for another one, she has like 10 of them. And it's just sort of that, and I don't mean to do it like that, but, you know, she doesn't need it. And I think that a lot of the kids, you know, look for things that other children have, and they really truly don't need those kinds of things. So, you know, if you make it a family event with this monthly spending planner, maybe the kids will be a little bit more aware, too, of what they can do without and what they can't. And then, if you give them a reward after, well, listen, if we save $1,000 a year, you know, we could possibly do something big with that $1,000 and go on some other kind of vacation or do something really fun for a few days, you know, and spend that money differently than some crazy little thing at, you know, one of these Walmarts or Claire's or anything else. Exercise your willpower. I think that's one of the biggest things that I have, that I don't have, I should say, is willpower, you know. I'm a shoe person, I'll admit it. I can't even tell you, you would lose your mind. You know, people look and my boyfriend says to me, can I just ask you, this was last summer, I've seen you in like a different pair of flip-flops every single day. Just started laughing. I'm like, yes, and thank God they're cheap, because I have like 45 pairs of flip-flops, which is ridiculous. You know, and I will still go to the store. I just went yesterday and I said, I'm at the new DSW, of course, the worst place in the world for me to be, a shoe store. And I'm like, oh my gosh, look at these flip-flops. Oh, these are great. My sister's like, you don't need them, you know? And I look and go, oh, but they're only $23, you know? That's no big deal. But it is a big deal, because I have 40-something pairs of them. It's a huge deal. I don't need it. So I think that exercising your willpower when you're talking about budgeting is really probably the hardest thing for yourself and for everybody to do. But if you can at least, you know, have that other inner voice on your other shoulder saying you don't need it, where truly you don't need it. You know, I don't need those. I want them, but I don't need them. So if you think about things that you need versus what you want, it helps you. And then really just get a good, and I tell this to all homeowners too, when they're thinking about purchasing a home, you know, for a couple of months or so, write down everything that, keep a record of, not unlike, I'm sure I've been to a zillion dieting places, not unlike something that you do for dieting. Write down everything that you're spending. So even maybe before you do your budget, before you take this monthly spending planner, you know, take a month. And every time you do something, if you go to Dunkin' Donuts or, you know, you plan on buying something, or you're at the grocery store, or, you know, write down how much you've spent. Make a record-keeping system of how much you have spent through the month, and it's going to help you with when you go to the following month and trying to plan for your budget, taking that. And like I said, this monthly budget planner, so the monthly payments, you put your monthly income at the top, from all sources. So when they say all sources, if we're talking about, I would leave out everything but like dividends or things like that unless you were retired or thinking of retiring. Because obviously dividends and things like that come into play when you're getting into retirement age, and can be a good source of income. But I would let your dividends continue to work for you, whether they're in some sort of mutual fund or things like that, and let them try to compound, because I'm looking at the audience. So, you know, when they say take your monthly expense, your monthly net expense, it's really just what you're getting from jobs, child support, on a monthly basis, what's coming into your household that you are able to spend. And then your monthly expenses, they just go through, and I think this is a really good one because it goes through rent or mortgage, like I said, alimony or child support, and child care. Crazy as it might seem, people will ask me when they come in for a mortgage, well, do you count my child care? Do you count daycare? We don't still, which is absolutely, it blows my mind. We count a $20 Visa bill, but we don't count a $400, or I don't even know at this point how much childcare is, but I know it's really expensive for childcare. So when they're looking at that, there is a reason why we don't, but it is not on there. Automobiles. You know, they have down here spaces for 2 cars, 2 automobiles. And they're really talking about loans in that place, because if you can see on the other side, it says loans. And then furniture and appliances, any finance companies that you have, or installment debts. Again, installment debts are if you had, you came into me and you said, Karen, I need a personal loan. I want to pay off credit card debt, and you got a $7,000 personal loan. That would be considered as installment debt now and not credit card debt. And that's just really the actual monthly payment that we're putting down there. Next is credit cards. And I see a lot of people's credit reports, and they have a lot more than 2 credit cards on there. So, you know, again, it's just your monthly, and what they're looking at here is your minimum. If you pay over, a lot of people will come in and say, oh, well, the minimum payment says 20, but I always pay 100. Well, if that's the case, then put down $100 here, because that's your budget and what you're looking to budget for. What you could do is you could put your actual payments down as your minimums, is what I say. And on the other side, your budgeted monthly payment, you could actually add to that if that was the case, if you get to the end and add to it. Next is utilities. As we all know, electric has gone through the roof here in Massachusetts, but there's nothing we can do about it. We need to pay it. I know there's some alternatives out there with, you know, other than shutting lights off and you know, we were just talking about it. We have an in-ground swimming pool, and sometimes we forget to turn it off at night. You know, it really only needs to run, the pool people say, only needs to run about 12 hours a day. We're gonna see what we can do with like maybe 8 hours a day. Turn it on right before we leave for work, and then turn it off when we get home. I mean, really, what's that extra 4 hours gonna do? So the pool turns a little green. You know, no big deal. But that's like huge with electric. You know, our electric bills go up enormously in the summer. And now with the new electric bills, I mean, I know everybody's been talking about it. You know, that electricity has been huge and through the roof. So, you know, just little things that you can do. Heating, of course, you know, like I said, we talked about it a little bit. Our heating bills are another thing that, you know, we can either turn down the heat a little bit. We're going into summer, which is wonderful. Possibly, if anybody knows, if you own a home, we did something called Mass Save. I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but it's a wonderful program that is out there. It's free. You just have Mass Save. You call your electric company, whatever. They come out and they do an audit for you, and you can get some really good saving tips. We have one of those all-over house fans at the top of our stairs, and we didn't even realize that all of our heat, was going right up through there and sticking in our attic or going out our roof. We got a free, and I think they're like $400. It's a cover for your ceiling fan. It's, I don't know, probably 4 feet by 4 feet, and it's magnetic, and it sticks on your ceiling fan. So in the winter, obviously it keeps because they're just vents, It's wonderful in the summer, but, we found in the winter, it actually helps. So, and that was free through Mass Save. They come out, you can do up to, I think it's, I want to say $22,000 for certain things. Insulation was one of the things that they covered. They cover windows, they cover some roofing. So it's really, really beneficial if you own a home to at least call them over the summer, have them come out if you haven't already. Like I said, the service is 100% free. Old homes, new homes, I suggest it to everybody that does it. Furnaces, they will give you some breaks. We have oil heat right now. We're thinking of converting over to gas because it's obviously a little bit cheaper at the moment, probably a little bit more energy efficient. We already have gas coming into our house, so really all we need to do is the burner. They even have some 0% loans for you to get on those types of things. So really, really beneficial. And it's called Heat. I think it's just like heat.com or whatever if you wanted to go onto the website and look. But beneficial for heating. Phone, cable, internet, kind of touched on it a little bit. I see a lot of people also going with, if you still have a home phone and you have a cell phone, you're kind of double dipping. I mean, there's so many people that have been, one of my standard questions, our standard application form says, home phone. And I kind of laugh because there's so many people that say, oh, we don't have a home phone anymore. We just have our cell. So I think the application should actually just be cell phone, or other, because there's a place for cell and home. But again, certainly worth checking into, whether you can there's so many different plans with cell phones now that you can do. And I know my nephew had just said, he's 21, so he's trying to budget and trying to possibly move out once he's finished college. And, he thinks a cell phone, he can't live without it, his cell phone. However, that $120 or whatever it is a month for a cell phone is ridiculous. So he has some cheaper cell phone bill that he pays, and I think he's down to about $40. He got himself down to about $40, and he texts all the time. I never even see him on the phone. So there definitely are, and I forgot who his carrier was, and it was someone that I didn't really even hear, but he said, no, Auntie, I never have dropped calls or, everything always goes through. So it's certainly possible. It's, checking it out. I think that maybe Verizon and AT&T and some of the others, Sprint, have us brainwashed that they're the only ones out there that can carry cell phone service, but there's certainly some out there that can, if you need it. Water, sewer, not a whole heck of a lot you can do about that if you're out there. Of course, all of that is usually, water, sewer, those kinds of things you might do without if you rent. Yeah. Auto, and these are typically, these are insurances that are next. Auto, Massachusetts requires you to carry auto insurance, so we can't do anything without that. Health insurance, that's typically taken out of your gross income. In the next, under medical is I think where I would put my co-pays, because we know that obviously health insurance is huge in today's world now, and everyone has co-pays. So I would probably put that under my co-pays on medical when you were doing this out, which was 2 down. Donations and charities and dues, they have church and charity and union and organizations. Don't forget them. I'm part of the Uxbridge Women's Club. It's $25 a year. I would probably put it somewhere else. Obviously, we're in church. Organizations really can't live without us, these nonprofit organizations. So, certainly don't forget them. They're in there. Also, don't forget, if you're, in your budget, and I know sometimes I do this, even for donations, if you do, my dad died of cancer, so I'm always a cancer donator for this or that, or people that are at work. I know, right now is a big March of Dimes month. You donate to that. And it's things that I'm just saying, don't forget to put it on your budget, because you should need to budget for them. Maybe not on a weekly basis or monthly basis, but certainly on a yearly basis. So don't forget to put it on there. Medical, again, people have some prescriptions that co-pays go with. I would just go on an average, those are difficult to say on a monthly basis, unless you're on something like a, Lipitor, I hear my sister say she's on, which is for cholesterol, I believe, and that kind of thing, unless it's a monthly bill that you have on a monthly recurring basis. Maybe just take it on a yearly basis and look at it and say divide it equally by 12 months. You can certainly do that. Transportation, that's a big one that you always have to adjust because of gas prices and maintenance of your vehicles and things like that. They always need a big adjustment according to gas prices. Maintenance, parking, public transportation. Obviously, if you work in Boston or you work someplace that you take public transportation, that needs to be in there because it's a big expense. Food, groceries. I personally think this is one of those ones that I don't do a great job with food and groceries, because I'm one of those people that go to the grocery store on a whim. So I'll go and say, oh, I feel like a chicken tonight, so I go and buy a couple chicken breasts and cook the chicken breast, and then I'll, oh, I want rice with it. I don't know if I have rice at the house. For me, I'm always thinking about that, and I think with budgeting, if you look at a weekly grocery list and say, I'm gonna stick to this grocery list, a lot of my friends who have larger families and aren't single do that. They have their grocery list, they go to the grocery store, and they get only what's on that grocery list, which is great for budget purposes. Not so great when you go like me. So food, groceries, school or work lunches, obviously that comes into play as far as going out to lunch at work and not bringing your lunch to work every single day. Add those in if that's what you're looking at. Clothing, new clothes, dry cleaning and laundry, uniforms, or all your required equipment. My sister's a nurse, so no, she doesn't have clothing every single day that she has to go out and buy at, TJ Maxx, but she needs her uniforms, and they, her scrubs and things like that. So don't forget those kinds of things that are work-related that you need for an everyday basis. For me, it's shoes, of course. On the households, obviously, again, with household, repairs, supplies, and other. Again, that's another thing that I think that you should look at on a yearly basis, or look at maybe for the projected year. Our house needs to be painted, so it's something that we really need to budget for as far as painting is concerned. It's not going to fall on our monthly budget, but it should. If you look ahead maybe and start doing this and say, okay, I'll do it from June to June, fiscal year June to June, and look and say, what could you be repairing in your house or anticipate repairing in your house? Take it and look at it as an average, again, divided by 12 months. And then just miscellaneous, you know, clubs, sports, hobbies, entertainment, vacations, gifts, pet supplies if you own a pet, bringing your pet to the vet, I hear, and groomers is huge. So, you know, that needs to be in a monthly budget also, and don't forget about it. And then the last thing is savings. And you know, hopefully when you finish your budget, you should have some savings. And at that point, you know, if it's a significant amount of savings that you can do, start with a small, you know, with a savings account and build from there. I always find with savings, at least for me, and I tell my mortgage customers this, if you put it in a different account, you're less likely to take it. So, you know, I had an ING account that I used to build up. I worked for Milford Federal for many, many years, and that ING account was just that much harder to take the money out because you had to have it transferred, and, you know, it wasn't a brick and mortar place. So, you know, it took a day or two before I took that $200, and when I really thought about it, I didn't really need that $200 right at that point, you know? Again, I wanted it because I wanted to do something with it, but I didn't really need it. So for me, you know, if you keep a savings account separate and you say this is truly savings and not my working account that I work everything else out of, all my budget out of, it will help you. And when you get into the savings, you know, obviously then working towards retirement at age, getting up towards retirement, we all know how important that's going to be, you know. Questions for anybody? Anybody have any questions or concerns or?
I have to come up with it.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Okay.
I do all my baking online, and it's this website, mint.com, and you let it link to your bank accounts, and then it'll automatically, when you use your credit card or debit, it like, you know, it says Walmart shopping or gas stations gas, and it will like put everything in budgets for you, and you can set, you know, let's spend $200 on this month, and then it'll do the same thing with like savings goals. I really like it.
Great idea. Yes, there's many out there too. If you Google it, that probably is a free one. Which is great. Who pays for apps these days? You know, that's another thing my nieces and nephews will say, like, Auntie, can I buy this app on your phone? I'm like, absolutely not. Find it for free. You know, I'm sure there's something out there. There's zillions. But absolutely, those kinds of tools are very, very helpful. You know, if you have a smartphone, certainly, you know, I know, doesn't Walmart now have something too that you, is it like a, I know I have Belly, it's called, and you just kind of scan it and it shows, you know, what you're paying and what you're paying for. I know I also have another thing on my smartphone that's a savings tool that's actually a scanner. So if it's a larger item, I was buying a TV, you know, and I just scanned it and it told me that the cheaper version was at, you know, Best Buy versus Walmart or one of those. You know, so if you are going to buy something like that, certainly there are many, if you, like I said, if you do have a smartphone, there are many apps like that. But yeah, absolutely. You know, it sort of keeps you in balance, right? Or gives you a little bit better check of where I'm spending my money and what I'm spending my money on. Absolutely.
Does the bank have any ratios in terms of, this is not your area, but for car loans? You know, if there's 25% of...
The bank does, and any kind of, usually any kind of financial institution do. I find the places that don't are when you go directly to the dealer. I don't think that they care if you have a job, basically. They're looking to sell that car. You know, I find that customers will come in and I'll think to myself, how did they get this $500 car loan payment? Because looking at their income, they really shouldn't be able to afford that, but they have it through, you know, Ford Motor Credit or somewhere. So I find that the finance company is a little bit less of that now, but yes, I mean, so typically when I touched upon what you can afford for housing, Basically, if you take your gross monthly income and you take 36% of your gross monthly income, so, basic, if you make $1,000 a month or $1,000 a week, $1,000 a month, let's just say to round off, 36% of that is $360. That should include your principal, your interest, or rent, and all your other housing expense. So, if you're quickly taking something and adding it, if you use 36% of your gross monthly income, that should pretty much include your car, your housing expense, your taxes and insurance. It should include pretty much if you use a 36%. So basically the ratio that we use, we will certainly go up to 41. And again, it's depending on what the customer or what, how you feel about that. But, if I take a 36 to 41% debt ratio, again, your principal and interest, taxes and insurance on the house or rent, housing expense, plus all of your installment debt, all the other installment debt that you have, and your revolving cards, so minimums on your revolving cards. Really shouldn't go over that. Yeah.
That seems really low. It really does. It's like going at like $360.
Well, I said $1,000 a month though, but.
No, I know that, but even so, it's just, it seems low. I know, like when.
Well, take $60,000, let's just say 2 incomes, $60,000 a year. Okay? That's $5,000. So that's $5,000 a month gross. So $5,000 a month gross times 36% or 41 should be, pretty, which is fairly normal for a 2-household family. Believe me, I do this all day. So if you take your, say, $5,000 a month times, let's say 41%, is $2,000 a month. So if you look at your gross monthly income or your yearly, say at 60, or your gross monthly at 5,000, and you say how much can I afford for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, plus all my other debts, including my car loan, should be about $2,000. Because we're not using childcare, and that's what I had said before, because we're not using things like childcare or car insurance or your co-pays for health insurance, or we're not using, any of that other expense that's on here. So truly the only things that we're using, if you wanted to check them off, is the first one, the monthly housing expense, the loans, the credit cards, and that's it in that expense ratio. So it's really just the top 3 that go into that housing expense ratio. And that's why they use that 41, as a maximum of 41%. Any other questions? Concerns? Credit? Again, like I said, when she was looking out, understanding your credit, there's a couple of places on here on the handout on that understanding credit and maintaining and everything as far as good credit is concerned. But on the back page, it's places where you can actually obtain your credit reports and go online if you wanted to and go from there. If you came into Unibank or any of the other financial institutions, we can't just pull your credit. So, if you say, oh, geez, I'm wondering what my credit looks like, but you're not applying for a loan or you're not doing anything financial with us, we can't just pull your credit for you. So it's something that you really do need to go and get on your own. Without kind of faking a loan that you want. You can pull it as many times as possible, or as you want. Obviously, there's one free per year, but anything after that, you end up paying for, and they're all different prices. You know, you really shouldn't pay more than, I would say, $15, $16 for a credit report if that's the case, if you've already gotten your free one.
Isn't it one free per,
Usually it's one free per year.
but it's not per financial?
Experian, Transit.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, so there's three, I didn't really say that, you're right. There's three different bureaus. There's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and all of those will give you one free. So I guess you could do it almost quarterly if you wanted to. There's also, like you said, we have, pardon me, we have free services also associated with like checking accounts and things like that. Ask at your bank.
If you're
Credit.
a bank member, you guys have now just granted us 2 years of free credit checks.
Exactly, exactly.
Thanks to the Target program.
Well, you know, I've had a debit card, of course, since talking about a little bit about credit, and that's, I guess, a good way to budget because my debit card, I still have my account with Milford Federal. I haven't switched everything over yet, and I was looking and I thought to myself, geez, I just got paid, and I went to the ATM and I looked at my balance. I said, we get paid every other week now, so I looked at my balance and I said, that doesn't seem right, you know? I'm paid commission, by the way, so it's different all the time, so I always have to kind of be conscious of that. And I said, that just doesn't seem right to me. So I went to Milford Federal and I said, you know, can I have a rundown of my balance? And she said, sure. I could have done it online, but I was there anyway, sort of in a panic. And someone grabbed my account number, my debit card, which I think this might be the 6th or 7th time my debit card has been compromised. Yeah, they like me. And it was, I said, oh, I'm going over it, and I just kind of went down quickly on the debits, and $1,000 out of my account. Like, yeah, I sort of thought I had more money than that. But another reason to maybe keep, you know, minimums in one of your accounts or your working account, and not a large balance if you are, you know, a debit card user. And I really do try to use, you know, I try to limit things that I put my, you know, I don't do online purchases with my debit card. I try not to give, you know, I don't associate my debit card with other things like FastPass or things like that. I have a credit card for that, a specific credit card for that. But I mean, it's hard, you know, if you pay for things other than cash, and I only had a check this, you know, I had checks or a credit card. I was at Wright's Dairy Farm, and I pulled out a check to write a check, and she's like, oh, we don't take checks anymore. I'm like, what? What do you mean? No, it's cash or debit. That's it. Like, okay. But, you know, going to get, those days of going to get those kinds of things and limiting it is difficult. But yeah, with the debits at Unibank, they do offer you that free. And they're doing a lot of free, every institution, because of this fraud deal, are doing a lot of free checks, and that's what I was gonna say. Just ask them, whichever bank you're at, certainly ask them to see if you have some sort of fraud alert or something on your account. Whether you have a debit card or not, it's a good idea. There's just so many different kinds of fraud scams happening every day to kids, elderly, anybody that's working. We just heard about the IRS fraud. You know, it's crazy what people are doing.